record to the cloud. There we go. So yes, I'm Dale Ziegler. I'm a senior BA with 7 Summits. Usually with me is Jeff Berger, Salesforce admin at Academy Bank. Unfortunately, Jeff is not able to join us today. He had some stuff come up. If you were with us a few months ago, or if you've seen the Salesforce Admins podcast or the low code event, you know that Jeff moved some mountains to get a lot of good stuff going in his org for the CARES Act with COVID and everything. He got called into some business for that today, so he's not able to join us right now. He may chime in later, but you're stuck with me running this today, so that's either a good or a bad thing, but welcome. So we are recording this, so this is the disclaimer right now. If you're not comfortable or cannot be recorded, please drop. We will post the recording probably this evening or by tomorrow, but also we're going to share this deck with all the links. That's also, as you're looking at the content and you see links, don't worry about scrambling to write them down, whatever. I'm going to share this out as soon as I can after this session. But if you cannot be recorded or don't want to be recorded, please drop now. And, you know, we're all familiar with the whole conference call etiquette thing by now. If you're not speaking, please just mute yourself. It should be easy enough to unmute if we have any open dialogue or Q&A or anything like that, but just to minimize noise and who knows what's happening in the background, just mute. So first of all, thank you to our friends at Metazoa for sponsoring this meeting. If you were with us, I believe it was April of 2018, we had Bill Appleton in town at Metazoa to walk and talk us through their snapshot product. They've always been really good to us. They've been really good to the user group community in general. So we're happy to have them sponsoring again today. As we've talked about a few times, we have a Slack channel that we're trying to get some traffic on. So if you would like to be part of that Slack channel, please send us an email to that address up there. That goes to both Jeff and I, and we can get you added as soon as possible. Once we get into the actual meeting content, I'll go through and share like the email address and some of the other links that we talk about. But if you want to join the Slack channel, it's there, or click on it when you get the deck later. So for those who are new to this whole Salesforce user group community thing, that's okay. We love our first timers. We love everybody, but there's more than just us here. We are technically known as the administrators group, but we call ourselves the general group because we do have developers, we do have marketers, we have nonprofit, we have WIT, we have everybody who wants to come. This is a safe place to learn, to collaborate, to idea share, to ask questions, to do whatever. This is a safe place for everybody. So don't worry about the segmented groups here. They are active groups for if you are a developer and want to get really heavy into the guts of code and all of that, or if you're nonprofit and want to share best practices for NPSP or anything, there's that group. But we are all here as the administrators, as the general group, to come together and learn from each other. So upcoming items, you can always go to this bit.ly here, which will take you to the master registration site for all of Kansas City, including our group, including the ones we just talked about. A couple of save the dates that we have coming up. I just sent the registration link out this morning, but with Trailhead X, it's a week from today. It's virtual. We are going to be taking our crack at hosting a virtual watch party off to the side of TDX. So I'll dive into a few more details on that here in a minute, but that will be a week from today. We also have our dates lined up for the next couple of general meetings, Thursday, July 9th and Thursday, August 13th. I just need to get a few details from the speakers and sponsors that we have lined up, and we'll have registration sites out as soon as possible. So be on the lookout for those, but mark those dates now. And then, like I said, I'll be sharing the deck, which includes a link here to a Google form that I sent out a couple of months ago. If you are interested in presenting at a future meeting, we would love to have you. It's your content. that makes these meetings so successful and amazing and sparks new ideas. It doesn't matter if you're a beginner, if you're advanced, if you're somewhere in between, if you're a hybrid of roles, it does not matter. We want to see what you have to offer because it is all good stuff. So if you want to get up there on the virtual stage, fill out this form that we'll share out here later. Do we have any other group leaders here on the call that want to talk about their groups, any upcoming events? Let's see. I know Brian Hadaway was pinging me about the bad link, and again, I'm so sorry. I have no idea what Zoom was doing. Okay. Do we have any user group leaders from outside of Kansas City that want to unmute and introduce themselves? Thought I'd seen a few register, but I don't know. Terry Miller.
Yeah, I was going to be quiet since I'm talking later, but yes, from the Des Moines user group, happy to be here today. Probably the most exciting thing that we've got going on, and we've got several of your people actually involved in it, is a platform app builder study group, and that's been I think we're on week 4. I think we'll be next week, and having a good time working with your people on that.
Awesome. And thank you again for hosting that. That's it's going to be huge for a lot of people. So good. Thank you. All right. Do we have any Salesforce employees on the call? Raise your hand. I can raise your hand in the chat. I can unmute you. I'm not looking at the video right now. All right. No problem. All right, bigger picture than just user groups, community resources and events. I am always going to put up at the top MVP office hours. I'm one of the co-hosts of that. If you have any open issues, you can't get a flow to work, or wondering why page layouts are giving you problems, or some code syntax that isn't working, anything that you have, or if you want to talk about the summer release or just hear what other people are talking about. We meet on the 1st and 3rd Friday of the month, which is tomorrow. We meet at 1 Central. You can always go to mvpofficehours.info or this bit.ly here to register, but it's not just MVPs answering the questions. It's not just non-MVPs asking the questions. Simple Logic says it's an open dialogue. It's, again, a safe place to help get your questions answered or find out, hey, you know, this feels like this might be happening. What do you all think? So go ahead and register and join us. We do that twice a month, and we would love to have you. And whether it's asking questions, answering questions, anywhere in between, please join us. You can always go to salesforce.com/events to get updates on world tours, other Salesforce events. Obviously, they're all virtual, at least for this year, but you can always get your event information there. As we mentioned, Trailhead X is now virtual. It is a week from today. I believe they kick things off at 10:45, and it's going to go till about 4:30. It's free. It's for developers, it's for admins, it's for those hybrids, but what separates it from Dreamforce is it gets back to the original roots of what Dreamforce was, of being some technical learning, some hands-on sessions, you are going to walk away knowing the setup UI that much better, or learning development best practices, admin best practices, automation best practices. And did I mention it's free? My favorite 4-letter word that starts with F. And then, as I mentioned earlier, and you probably received the invitation already, we're going to have the virtual watch party on the side to just come and go as you please, talk about what you learned, ask any questions you have, whatever. It's just going to be an open forum through Google Hangout. Any of Salesforce's webinars are now posted on Trailhead. Community events are now also being listed out on Trailhead. Like for me, I'm part of the Midwest Dream and Planning team. We have unfortunately postponed for the year, as have a lot of them, but some are trying to go virtual. You can get all the information about all those events here for those that are happening, or any postponement dates, anything like that. The Trailblazer mentorship group, This is huge if you want an opportunity to pay it forward and give back. They put you through a survey of what are your skill sets, what have been your positive experiences, negative experiences, a few things in between, and try to align you with mentees, or if you're a mentee looking for a mentor. I had the opportunity to do it earlier this year. I got a couple of people that it was a phenomenal experience. Was able to coach them on interviewing for the next level up of a Salesforce position, or reviewing resumes, whatever you could think you need mentorship on or would want to mentor on. This is a great program put on by Salesforce, so I highly encourage it. And then, of course, the idea exchange. I actually don't know if prioritization is still going on or if they've closed it. They were doing it in May, but this is always a live site to even just get pointed to the idea exchange. Salesforce is listening. I know there's a lot of ideas out there that are stale, potentially because they haven't been deduped, or maybe because it requires 5 or 6 things beforehand to get an idea resolved, but Salesforce is listening, so I always highly encourage interacting with the idea exchange. Summer 20 release milestones. Obviously, COVID has impacted the entire world, but Salesforce specifically, in terms of the summer release, some dates have been pushed back. The first release has already happened. I believe that was in May on NA44, NA45, the core ones. Second release window coming up July 10, third release window the following week. The release notes are up and out there, and you can always get information on your instance at status.salesforce.com, whether it's current outages or future planned maintenance, including release upgrades. You can always go there. We've talked about this the last few meetings, but COVID has caused some relaxation of certification rules in terms of the maintenance exams. We are at 1x per year instead of 3. Also, if you're taking your exams at home, only needing the 1 camera instead of the second webcam. So obviously highly encourage, if you have the opportunity to take a certification, it's never been easier to do it from home. It's not a painful process at all. You install an app on your computer that essentially mimics the proctoring process. If you go to a testing center, locks out internet, locks out all the other things, and it makes it really easy. And then, of course, I highly recommend following the Release Readiness Trailblazers group. Don't worry about this link. Again, when I share the deck, click on it and go straight to it. Especially this week with all of the videos that they were doing for the next release, there are a lot of posts. So I would say a happy medium is to set your email digest to daily to get those updates, unless you just want to get bombarded with 50 at a time during a live webinar. I do it. It's not that bad, but go with daily if you don't. All right, we're working our way through this. Celebrations. Raise your hand if you are a first-time attendee and just tell us your name in the chat window. Welcome. We love having everyone here. Again, this is a very safe place to learn, to share, to ask questions. So if you're a first-time attendee, welcome. Let's see, Jeannie, awesome. Do we have any new roles or jobs to celebrate? Do we have any job openings to share? I know Jeff was looking for somebody at Academy. I don't know the status of that, but anybody want to unmute and talk about any openings?
Hey there, this is Ashir, first time here. Just want to, yes, thank you. Well, acknowledge you for opening this up nationally, because I'm based in Houston, so would not be able to attend if it wasn't open, well, if it wasn't virtual and open to everybody. And also excited to help Terry out with his presentation later today, and just passed my platform app builder exam.
Woohoo!
Yesterday, so really happy, really excited. And like you mentioned, yeah, it is pretty easy right now with the minimum requirements so little. All you just need is the computer webcam, internet, and you're good to go. And also with the promotion that Salesforce has been running with the literally half off voucher, now is literally the best time to just get as many certifications as you can.
You teased my next slide, but thank you. That's awesome. Welcome. I see here in the chat. So welcome Houston, welcome upstate New York, welcome everybody who's joining us from outside of Kansas City and from outside the Midwest region. Congratulations, Ashir. Platform app builder, not an easy one, so congratulations on that. Jeannie, studying for service and app builder, both are scheduled for mid-July. Good luck. Those are both awesome ones. You can ping any of us for any guidance, any tips, any questions. Judith, first-time attendee, new to Salesforce, new employee of Down Syndrome Guild of Kansas City. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Any others? Anybody who took a test and failed it? Because you are very safe here with that. Everybody knows I go absolutely crazy for people who failed their exams. I love it. Not in a bad way.
Hey Dale, this is Denise. At our last user group meeting, I got a certification voucher from you and Jeff, and wanted to let you know that since our last user group meeting, I've gotten my platform app builder, my sales cloud consultant, my service cloud consultant, and my community cloud consultant. So I really appreciate the inspiration.
Oh my goodness, congratulations times 4.
Congratulations.
Did you take any time to sleep in there?
I did not, and I absolutely hate these tests. So it was brutal, but I wanted to, first of all, I got inspired by getting the voucher. And then second of all, I wanted to take advantage of the looser restrictions on doing the certifications at home with just the single webcam. So I was trying to kind of machine gun it and get a bunch knocked out in a short amount of time.
Oh man, that is so awesome. I'm glad that we were able to help you out with one of those, and man, 4 in a month. You are phenomenal. Good job. Good job. Very nice. Awesome. All right, Jeannie, quick self-promotion. I'm looking for my first role in the Salesforce ecosystem as an admin, junior consultant, or data management. So everybody, if you are possibly able, click over to the chat if there's anything that you can do to connect with Jeannie. Let's see what we can do. She's the second from the bottom there in the chat thread right now. Cooper, I feel like Squire from MVP Office Hours. Squire is just by far one of the best people I have ever met. Salesperson by nature, becoming an admin by osmosis. Very nice, very nice. Welcome, Cooper. All right. I guess the last question, are there any active study groups, or is anybody open to study groups? Terry mentioned the Platform App Builder group going on in Des Moines, but if anybody is interested in connecting, go ahead and use the chat to sync up and do some virtual sessions or whatever works. But like I said, we're all here to help each other. So if we can move that forward, let's do it. Good luck, everybody. Get back over here. Yep, so as Ashir referred to earlier, certification days are back, and in the end comes with a half-off discount. I know many of you, Daniel, a few others, have definitely benefited from these sessions. Kind of a crash course led by Salesforce, but a quick crash course in what you need to know to prepare for and study for the exams, and then the discount at the end. So I've provided links to the success post as well as the sign up in Trailhead here, which will get shared out later. So highly encourage going through this if you can, and good luck if you do. All right, the agenda, the meat and potatoes of this meeting, and then y'all don't have to listen to me anymore. Very, very happy to have Metazoa sponsoring today. If you were with us 2 years ago, we had Bill Appleton. Today we get Bill's brother Tom, based in Georgia, and he is going to present how to optimize profiles and tackle technical debt. And then Terry, our friend from Des Moines, will be presenting using stories to influence others. And if you saw the success post either this morning or the email, there is a sheet that you can go download and work from that will supplement Terry's presentation. We're going to try and get this meeting wrapped up by 1:15 or so, but if there's any time left, open Q&A or office hours or talking about the summer release, we're going to just leave it open for whatever the audience wants to do, and if we want to cut, we can cut. So with that, very, very happy to introduce Tom. Tom is a father, a gadget lover, a guitar player. He runs sales for Metazoa, the creators of Snapshot, the ultimate org management tool for Salesforce admins. And I can vouch it is a very awesome tool for someone who doesn't know code like myself, to be able to dive into the guts of an org. But then also if you are super deep into DX, if you're super deep into DevOps, Snapshot is the tool for you. But we're going to turn it over to Tom now to talk about optimizing profiles and getting rid of that nasty technical debt. So let me stop sharing, and Tom, the floor is yours, good sir.
Thank you, Dale. All right, everybody, I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to turn off I want to say hi to everybody, but I'm going to turn my video off. It makes me nervous to have the video on when I'm presenting, so it's distracting. So we're going to stop that, and we're going to share my screen, which I'm sure you will appreciate. So, okay, everybody. So just a real quick one slider here, and that's all we're going to do. So just a little overview of what Snapshot is. Today we're going to talk about, optimizing your org, essentially tackling your security model, your profiles, and your permission sets, and also getting rid of all that technical debt, unused metadata, all that bloat in your org that, makes things slower and also adds complexity and makes it harder for you to manage. And we're going to show you how we at Snapshot address that. And just a couple of quick notes on what we do. We are a release management solution. As Dale said, we take a clicks not code approach. You don't have to work with repos. You don't have to understand XML and how to diff it and all that kind of stuff. If you're a developer and you do those things, great. We'll hook up to your repo. We'll play with your XML, but it's not required. We're really a tool that works very well for admins, consultants, and other people that may not be strictly developers. We also do data migration. So along with that, we have full relational data migration. It's kind of like data loader on steroids. We can move data between orgs, maintain relationships, scramble fields, map objects. Really all the things you need to do to, repopulate a refresh sandbox or grab a bunch of data from production to give to developers to work with. But these last three are really what I want to focus on. And these are really the three that we're going to talk about today. And the first is org documentation. So this is really kind of a key fundamental step when you're going to optimize your profiles or get your org put together and get rid of that technical debt. You got to understand how it's structured, right? If you don't know what you have, you can't fix it. So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about actually doing the cleanup. So, getting rid of unused metadata, getting rid of unused fields. We really tackle that pretty comprehensively. And then we also have what I think is the most comprehensive set of tools for managing profiles and permission sets. And a lot of people kind of see that as its own island, but it really is a big part of your technical debt and optimizing your org. Lots of people have security models that are too complex for what they really need. Some people have, way too many profiles because every time they got a new security requirement, they created a new profile. Then Salesforce brought in permission sets and everybody ran out and put those exceptions out into permission sets. And then the permission sets got too complicated. And then they brought over permission set groups. So it's complex, and you have to understand your security model, especially if it's already kind of gone down that rat hole. You have to really understand it, and then you have to have, whatever tools you can to really get it put into tip-top shape so that you've got a security model that you understand, but also meets your security requirements. So really, that's what we're going to talk about, those last three today. So with that, let me jump over. We're actually going to jump over and take a look at Snapshot here. Okay. All right, so this is Snapshot. It's a desktop application that runs on your desktop, your Windows or your Mac machines. It has a managed package that acts as sort of the collaboration piece. It does our licensing. It lets you share backups, share desktops. It does permissioning. So it's a fully collaborative product, but we don't put it in the cloud because we don't ever touch your data, we don't ever touch your metadata, and we don't touch your credentials. So it's really a product that has a very kind of a bulletproof security model to it. And what you're looking at right here is a workspace. These are created with drag and drop. And right here, I've got a pretty complex looking workspace set up for doing, releases, DevOps. So, just to kind of orient you to what you're seeing, these blue icons are connections to Salesforce orgs. Could be any kind of org, sandbox, developer, DX, production, doesn't matter. These green icons are connections to code repositories. So again, if you are a developer and you're working with code repos, we can hook up to your repo, any flavor of Git, and push and pull your metadata around. So these things that connect everything up are what we call deploy arrows, and they let you deploy metadata, do comparisons across orgs, deploy data. And so it's really a visual approach to this. And just to show you, I'm going to jump to a simpler workspace here that these do not, what I want to show you here is these really don't have to be that complex. So here I've got a real simple one, just 3 Salesforce orgs, sandbox, staging, production org. Now, if you're going to do org optimization and cleanup with the tool, really the fundamental step that you have to do is you have to back up your metadata, get a picture of it, right? And we do that, of course, with the Salesforce API, but you do it with drag and drop. So we're going to drag on a blue icon here. And what I'm going to do is right-click on that icon. And from here, I could take a full or partial metadata backup of the org. A full backup is pretty simple. You log into the org. In this case, I've got a production org, but it could be any kind of org. And then you move to the next step and you take that backup. And that's going to reach out and it's going to back up all of the metadata that can be backed up to the org. And we handle all the size limits and all those issues that you run into if you've used Eclipse or other things. We will take multiple retrieves and then stitch it all back together to give you one nice cohesive backup of even a really gigantic org. And then these can be scheduled as well. So, for disaster recovery, maybe you want this happening every day, every week, whatever makes sense. You want a backup happening of your org so that you can go back and retrieve metadata if you have an oopsie moment, like Salesforce blows away your profile permissions. Not that that's ever happened. And so, yeah, you can also do a partial backup as well. So a partial works the same way, except you move through and select what, for each category, what metadata you want to back up. So once you've got that backup, you can now do a whole lot of really cool things with it. We're going to really focus again today on technical debt and on profiles and permission sets. So if I right-click on any org, I get a whole lot of options there. You can see that we really break a lot of these options that we're going to look at today into categories. You can visualize the org, you can document it, you can optimize it, and you can also work on the security model. So we're going to start just up here and visualize, and we're going to visualize, just view the assets. So what we're doing here is just literally looking at the metadata from the last backup that we took. Let me move this Zoom thing out of my way. All right, so here's a list of all that metadata that we captured in the backup. And if I click on something like custom objects, I get a list over here of them. And I can click on them. And if I am interested in XML, we show you that. And then if there's subtypes to that metadata, like, objects have fields and list views and whatever, you can click on any of those and drill down. So now I'm looking at all the fields for the account object. But where this really gets interesting for understanding the structure of your org is this is a fully searchable interface. So I could come in here and select account depth. This is just a custom field here, and click the search palette, and it's going to show me everywhere in the org that field is being used. So it's used in these custom objects, these page layouts, these object translations, these report types, and so forth. So I really get a complete picture of everywhere that metadata type is being used. And anytime you see a report in the tool, you can just right-click and export that out if you want to take it out as to share with the team or as a job list or whatever. Now, this is a fully interactive search as well. If I click on anything, I can actually see, if I do understand XML, where that usage is, where that reference is. And then you could search for anything. This could be a group, a queue, a role. Maybe I want to search for a user here. So, oh, I didn't get it right. So at MZ, let's try that. Yeah. So here's a user, and I can see everywhere that user is being used in the org. So for example, I can see by clicking right here that this user is the running user on this dashboard. So this is really great for understanding the structure of your org, impact analysis. If you're going to deactivate a user, what does that mean? What dashboards do I have to deal with? If I'm going to delete this field, what's going to happen? And again, you could do that for any metadata type. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about understanding the structure of your org. Another great way to do that, I'm going to right-click here and we're going to go to this document area. Now, there's a lot of ways for us to document your org. Everything, you can look at your fields versus your page layouts, your record types versus pick list, controlling versus dependent. But what we're going to look at our data dictionary. So a lot of people understand sort of what a data dictionary is. It's a list of objects and fields and all the field properties. But we really expand on that to make it a lot more comprehensive. So right here, we're going to select what objects we want to report on. In this case, we're just going to do the account object. And then here we have all the different things we could add to the report. And over on the right, are which of those things we are actually putting in the report. So we added a lot of things that you could find and set up, but we kind of pulled them together because a lot of times they make sense if this is an administrator reference or compliance doc to have in there. So we do our summary statistics. That's like, you know, asset counts. How many Apex pages do I have? How many triggers do I have? Those types of things. We do org limits. So you can see I've added some of the org limits here, but all of the org limits are available. So you can check on, you know, where are your API limits or your data storage limits. We can look at your licenses. I'll add snapshot over here. We can see how many licenses we have of our own tool. All of your organization licenses. So I've added all the Salesforce licenses here. And then we get into the real meat of it, object properties and field properties. So you can, all of them are available, but you can see what I've added over here. Things like description for my field here, description, help text, formula, pick list values. And then lastly, we can also do relationships. So sort of what we were looking at when we were searching on the other interface, but I could select any other metadata types and it'll tell me how those fields are related to it. So, you know, I can see what page layouts they're used in, what reports, groups, Apex pages, whatever. I could select anything here. So let's go ahead and run that in real time for the account object. And here we have it. So here's my summary statistics. You can tell this is a small dev org, right? It's got 283 Apex classes and 12 components, and I put in some of the modified stuff to see. I could actually list the names of all of them, but I didn't really want to scroll through all that today. So then there's our org limits and where we are with those and the percentages. Here's our org licenses. Here's our package license there. We have a lot of snapshot licenses since, of course, we own the tool. And then here's our object properties, and then we really get into the meat of it here, the field properties. So here's each field. You know, there's the pick list values if it's got pick list values, description, help text. You can see I have a poorly documented org here. Hopefully yours is better, or we can help you discover that. And then, you know, actual formulas in the formula fields. So this is the kind of stuff that lots of admins build with cut and paste in Excel, but we're giving it to you, you know, with a couple of clicks. And if we scroll down here past those, we get into those relationships, what page layouts are the fields being used in, and so forth. And again, with a right click, I can share this with the team or take it out to Excel or a PDF or whatever I want. And also, all of these reports could be scheduled. So just like you could schedule a backup, I could say every time a backup's taken, you know, run a fresh report, or run this report every Friday at midnight and send it to my admin team. So you can have all of these reports sort of being delivered to you, so you don't have to, you know, go out and run them in an ad hoc fashion. All right, so we've talked a little bit about documenting your org. And like I said, understanding the structure of your org is really a fundamental step before you really start optimizing it. And like I said, as you see here in this document menu, there's lots of other reports that help you do that. But let's talk a little bit about optimizing here today. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is, you know, here's all the different tools that we give you to really clean up unused metadata, bloat, you know, old reports, whatever it may be. And I'm just going to hit a couple of highlights here. Let's look at field usage. So a lot of people are familiar with like Field Trip, right? We've probably all played with Field Trip at some point, which I won't say out loud where that was taken from. But Field Trip, you know, it does let you see whether a field's empty or not, essentially, right? You know, there's no one's ever put data in this field, so it's probably a good target for cleanup. But we really dive quite a bit further than that. So I'm going to select the account object here. And I'm going to go into preview that, and it's going to crunch through all of the fields in that account so that we can kind of have all the information for them. But I'm going to just pause it where it is so we don't have to sit through all that. All right, so here we got, of course, the field, you know, labels, types, all the types of, you know, how many records there are, how many are empty. So, you know, empty fields are obviously a red flag when you're doing cleanup. But we also look at how much data is defaulted data, all right? So if I went and looked at, you know, let's say billing country code here, we also give you a nice drill down over here. So for billing country code, I can see I have 1,145 records for the account object, obviously small org here. So 207 of those are defaulted, are the default value for that field. 805 are empty, and we have 28 distinct values. And then we give you some percentages and stuff about that. Sorry, I didn't mean to click off there. And over here, we can see that drill down. So here's the 805 empty. Here's the 207 that obviously the default is US for the country code here. And then you can see how all the other values break down. So by also giving you that default, that's really important, because if you had a field that doesn't show as empty, but all the data is defaulted data, then you know that, well, every time that records get, that account object's getting created, no one's putting anything maybe meaningful in there. They're just letting the default go. So it's just sort of a deeper analysis on your fields. All right, let's show something else here that's pretty cool. This is our forgotten assets report. I like to say this is kind of like Salesforce Optimizer on steroids. It doesn't have any of the limitations of Optimizer. You don't have to cycle through 50 objects at a time. We support much more metadata types. And essentially, we look at any piece of metadata in the org, and we have a custom algorithm for each metadata type, and we tell you what's not being used, okay? So in this case, I've selected email templates in this org. And we can see here in red, here's all the email templates that we believe are not being used. And how do we know that? If we scroll over here, look at the details, you can see in green here, these email templates are referenced by workflows or networks or processes or portals, whatever, whereas these email templates are not referenced by anything. We're looking for incoming references in the case of email templates, kind of like Google or something. So that's a real big red flag that these are likely not being used. They're not hooked up to anything. And also we can see, well, this one was last modified in 2013 by Bill Barnes, and it's not connected to anything. That's definitely a target to clean up. So what's cool is I could right-click to bring this out as a job list to go do it manually, but I could also take this out as a job list to use with our deployment tools and go in and run a delete job and go ahead and just delete those out all in one shot. So we always, where it's relevant, connect up to the deployment tools to fix things with the tool as well. Like I said, we're not focusing on the deployment tools today. But anyway, I could do this for any metadata type, groups, queues, roles, reports, doesn't matter. We cover all of it. So just a really great way to get rid of a lot of that bloat, especially if you're moving to Lightning. Getting rid of all this stuff is really important. Okay, so we talked a little bit about documenting the structure of your org, cleaning it up. What I want to spend the last bit of time here is talking about profiles and permission sets, because we really special case those. A lot more to see on the optimization and cleanup side, but hopefully we hit some highlights that kind of gives you the flavor of it. So the first thing about, I think, dealing with your profiles and permission sets is understanding what you've got. A lot of admins get dropped into a really complex security situation, and just understanding the security model is a daunting task inside of Salesforce. So we have a special visualization for both profiles and permission sets. So if I go to visualize profiles here, what we do is we put the security into a matrix so you can quickly track it down and document it. So in this case, I've got my profiles going down the left-hand column, and across the top right now I'm looking at field permissions. If I click this drop down in the upper right, I could select any part of the profile or permission set on the next tab. So I'm going to go to object permissions, for example. So I can quickly track stuff down now. My contract manager for the account has create, delete, edit, and read, right? So this is a great way to rapidly be able to track down security. And of course, with a right click, we could bring that out for reference or compliance. But we throw in a lot of nice tricks here. One is we can trim it. So you may not want to see all that. So maybe you just want to see, these 4 profiles. So now we've got a trimmed down, much more concise view that lets you really understand, what the security looks like for just those profiles. Plus, we do inline editing here. So let's look at this. We got account custom settings, no access to that for these profiles. Maybe I want to give that access. I could go into edit mode. I could select these. Using my control here, I could maybe add in a couple others that I want to add in. I could make the changes to the security that I want and apply those changes on the fly. So if you need to make changes to lots of profiles and permission sets, and you've ever done it with your hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clicks inside of Salesforce, this is a great time saver, really a productivity boost. So, editing, viewing, documenting, permission sets work exactly the same way. We just map permission sets down the left and things across the top. So that's really step 1 with profiles and permission sets. You got to understand what you got, okay? And then we also let you look at the security by user. So if I right-click here and go down to the security menu, we have this profile and permission set report. And what this does is it looks at, so first part of it is just what you saw before. I could click on anything like object permissions or field permissions. I don't want to do that right now. Object permissions or, tab visibility or whatever it is and see what the security is. Same for permission sets. But down at the bottom, we have what we call combined security. We combine and look across both and then let you view it through the guise of any user. So what I'm going to do here, we're going to keep it simple for the demo's sake. I'm just going to select our object permissions. And let's go in and display that report. Now, I've set this report up for my brother, Bill. because you've got to keep track of what he's doing in our org. But I could select as many users as I want here. I could search by profile or role. I could do up to 500 users in a single report, but I'm just going to stick with Bill for simplicity's sake here. So now I can quickly see what Bill's object permissions are, but we walk you through how he got to that setting, and if there's elevation of security by permission sets from the profile, we highlight it in green. So here I can see there's some type of elevation on the account. So Bill is assigned the custom standard user profile, which gives him only read and view access, right? But then there's this permission set, which gives read, this permission set, which gives create read, this permission set, which gives delete, edit, read, and that finally yields the combined security of create, delete, edit, read, view, full CRUD. So figuring that kind of stuff out for your users in Salesforce is hard. You'd have to go see what he had on the profile and then go find out what permission sets he's assigned to and then see what that security. So we walk you through it, starting with the profile. And if there's elevation of the security, we highlight that for you because that's something that oftentimes people want to understand. Oh, my permission set is letting Bill do things that maybe I didn't originally intend in the profile, for example. So this is just a great way to kind of do that, to really understand security. So once you kind of understand the structure of the profiles and the permission sets in your org, the next part is really getting them squared away, getting people reassigned correctly, deleting out what you don't need, or the really big one, merging profiles. That's super hard to do, right? So if you go back to the security, we have a user permission assignments dialog here, and this is sort of power for doing all the manipulation of your profiles and permission sets in a much more fast and inside of Salesforce. Let's kind of take a look at it. So this is where I can just really see all the assignments to start, right? So if I click on Bill, I can see he's got this profile, these permission sets. I don't have permission set groups in my dev account, but if I did, those would show here and any ones he was assigned to. Now I can actually edit these assignments on the fly. So maybe I want Bill to have this permission set. I can click it, click save, and I've now assigned him to it. So it's just that quick. And I could do mass assignment here. Assign a bunch of users to one, assign a bunch of permission sets to one user, however I want to do it. And I can flip it to view it from any other way. So for example, if I wanted to look by profile, I click on this radio button at the top. Now when I click on a particular profile here, I can see what users have that profile and what users don't. And so I could also look at it by group or by permission set. So this is just a really fast way to see how things are assigned and to reassign them as you see fit. The next tab over is for creating those new permission set groups. So for those of you that are maybe kind of new to this, permission set groups is a new thing that Salesforce has launched where you can group up sets of permission sets and assign them as a group. They did that for sort of what I talked about earlier. Permission sets came in to help with profiles, but then permission sets got really complicated. So now we have permission set groups, which makes the assignment of multiple permission sets a lot faster and easier. And this is really an interface where you can create these. So I could select any group that I wanted of permission sets. I could calculate the assignments. In other words, calculate a list of users that are assigned to them, and then actually give it a name, give it a label, give it a description, click a button, do the assignment, do the creation all in one shot. So this is really just a streamlined interface for making those permission set group assignments fast. This one is my favorite one. This is where, for those of you that have old orgs like we do, we've been around since 2006, everybody had too many profiles, right? Because that was all there was. And so when Sally showed up and she needed one permission different from the rest of the group, that was a new profile. So people started dealing with one-off permission issues by creating more profiles. I mean, I had a customer the other day that had 211 users in their org and 191 profiles. So I mean, that's an extreme example, but it happens. A lot of people have way too many profiles, and Salesforce really wants everyone to move to permission sets and permission sets groups. So, a big part of that is merging similar profiles. Now, there's another report that we have called Similar Assets. I'm not going to show it in the essence of time today, but you can go there and see how similar any two assets are, like two profiles or four profiles. So that's a good place to start. Figure out how similar, where is the similarity in your profiles. But once you understand that, you could come in here and we can actually do what is probably one of the most complicated things to do with profiles in Salesforce, the merge. So I could come in here, let's say we're going to merge these contract manager profiles because they're similar. So I'm going to come in and select those. Now I'm going to calculate what's going to happen if I crunch all these down to one profile, what permission sets do I need, How many permissions do each of those permission sets need to have? We're going to calculate that and generate all the information for them right here. So this takes just a minute because it's doing a lot of math, but you can imagine doing this manually inside of Salesforce is really tough. So let's give it 1 second here and we should have our results. There we go. All right, so if we turn this into one profile, it's going to create these 4 permission sets with this number of permissions in each. And over here, I can give it a name. So maybe it's going to be the contract manager profile, if I could spell, which I can't. All right, yeah, that looks weird with a big O, but let's leave it. And now we can decide, do we want to delete the old profile? So you could go ahead and clean those up right now. You might want to leave them for rollback purposes. And then we can actually do the merge, and it's going to create that profile, create those permission sets, assign out all the users that were on the other profiles to it, all in one shot. So this is an awesome way to start simplifying your security model, but maintaining the security that you need to have. So a really cool tool for that. Last bit I'm going to show before I hand this back off to Dale and the team. We also have all those reports, show me all my permission sets and groups by users, or show me all my permission set groups by permission set. You can click and check all those different reports, put them into a display report here and export them out. So this is a great way just to come and report on all the stuff so you have it for reference. So, what we really didn't touch on today is that, you can connect any org to any org. And once you've done that, you could compare across orgs. So, we could do comparison of all the metadata. We could deploy data. We could do rollbacks, and deploy metadata. We could do rollbacks, and we can also deploy data. So it's a fully comprehensive release tool as well. We just really wanted to focus for today's session on the other stuff. The one thing I will show you just really quick is you can compare profiles across 2 orgs. So we looked at looking at profiles inside of your org that you're working with or trying to clean up, but we also give you the capability to look at these across orgs, and we maintain that matrix approach. Source org on the left, destination on the right. Green is new profiles, so lots of profiles in the source org that haven't made it to destination. And then any changes, like right here on the account access for contract manager 2, are highlighted in red. So we got view over here, don't have view over here. This is a synchronous scroll. You could put it into a single table so you could export it out. You could trim it, do the same thing for permission sets. So great way to look at security maybe from your staging org to your production org. Make sure they're all in sync. All right, so that's it. Hopefully we gave you guys a good look at some of the tools. One of the things we're really trying to do with Snapshot is focus on a full lifecycle management. We don't want to just be a release management tool. We'll put our release tools up there against anybody, but we also want to give you all the tools you really need to clean up your org, optimize it, and manage it so that when you go into that release cycle, you've got an org, you're not passing those problems downstream. All right, well, thanks everyone for sticking in there. Hopefully some of you signed up for the raffle today. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to you, Dale.
Thank you so much, Tom. Awesome as always. Any of us who have touched Snapshot before in any capacity knows that it has been a life-changing tool. So, and it's awesome to see how much more new stuff you're putting on and that you're putting in it, as well as keeping up with the new functionalities like the permission set groups and everything. So definitely a good tool for anybody's tool belt, whether you're on the admin or the dev side. Does anybody have any questions? We can definitely open this up for Q&A.
You bet.
Yeah, go ahead and throw it in the chat or unmute and go. Is there nonprofit pricing? Yep.
Yeah, we got that twice. That was good. Yes, we offer 30% discount off of our pricing for nonprofits. Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Well, before
thanks everybody.
Before I totally let you off the hook here, Metazoa has a couple of prizes to raffle off. When you registered, there was a question if you opted into being part of it. So I'm just going to throw together a super quick digital pull out of a hat here, and let's see who we get. If y'all want to pretend you're doing drum rolls or not, I'd understand, but. Select with comma and equal or different. There we go. All right, our first winner, if he is on, is Matt Greisel. Matt, are you on? Matt. I do. Hey, there you go, Matt. Congratulations, Matt. I'll connect you and Metazoa through email. And which prize are you giving away first, Jill, for Matt?
You know what? Here's the fun part. They get to pick which prize they want. So we have the Roku streaming stick or the Echo Show 5.
Awesome. All right. I will, Matt, I will get you connected with Jill through email later this afternoon, and you can pick your prize. So congratulations. All right. Next winner, Dara Buren.
Oh, yay.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Same thing. I will get you connected through email.
Woo-hoo!
And there we go. And winner number 3, Chance Hoskins. Chance, are you on?
Yay.
You are. Congratulations. Same thing as the first 2. You're no different. I'll get you connected through email. So there we go. So thank you, Tom.
One
thank
more.
you, Jill.
One more.
Oh, we got one more?
Yeah.
You're very welcome.
Sweet. One more. Susan Winkler. Woohoo!
Nice. Congratulations.
All right.
Yeah.
Congrats, everybody.
All right. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Metazoa. Like I said, it's a phenomenal product that definitely applies to a lot of people. And thank you for what you do for the user group community and for us.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Really enjoyed it, everyone. Thanks.
All right. So now we're going to hand it over to Terry Miller. For those who don't know Terry or haven't had a chance to meet him, he is just 3 hours north of us in Des Moines. Terry is passionate about the Salesforce family of products. He holds 15 certifications. 15. And that's actually towards the top of the list for people in the Midwest. Yeah, I know. Terry is like super duper smart and super duper nice as well. Easily approachable, cares deeply about helping others. He is a Salesforce Lightning champion, a mentor. As he mentioned earlier, he leads the Des Moines user group. He's a blogger. He's a Salesforce trainer. Just all around good person to have in your network. So Terry, floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you for that introduction. Hopefully you can hear me all right.
We can.
Awesome. Very good. Well, yeah, so let me get started with telling you a quick story. A game that my family and I often play at the dinner table goes something like this. Someone will toss out a line from a movie, and the rest of us will guess the name of that movie. Here's a couple examples for us to play with. Just keep swimming, and someone would say, Finding Nemo. Now, I can't talk about Dory without giving you the opportunity to hear Dory sing to the very resistant Nemo.
Hey, Mr. Grumpy Gills. When life gets you down, you know what you gotta do?
I don't want to know what you gotta do.
Just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep swimming, swimming, swimming. What do? We swim.
Dory, no singing.
Oh,
Dory.
I love to swim in.
Dory.
When you want to swim, you want
See,
to
I'm gonna
keep
get stuck now with that song. Now it's in my head.
Sorry.
Sorry, not sorry, probably, but that's kind of a relevant song given the current situation that we're in, and perhaps maybe you are in that situation where you're kind of like Nemo's father. They're feeling a little bit down because of all of this COVID mess. And so let me just encourage you quickly, and this is just a little side benefit from the main topic here today, but just keep swimming. Just keep going out there and doing the things that you do that make you uniquely you. And so let me get back to some of our movies. So maybe you might hear at our table something like, Luke, I am your father. And someone would inevitably say, obviously, Star Wars. So I want us to try a few of these together. So if you have your chat window open, please open it, or I'm fine with you unmuting too. So if you prefer to unmute and you're not afraid to have your voice publicly announced, go ahead and unmute too. And let's play this game together. So I'm going to throw out a line from a movie, and then if you would, in your chat window, share with me and the group the name of the movie. So let's get started. There's no crying in baseball.
League of Their Own.
League of Their Own, yes. Yes, very good. Yeah, a lot of you see that one. A ton of great one-liners in that particular show. What about this one? You complete me. Oh, there you go, Jerry Maguire. Yes, yes, Jerry Maguire. That's also the one you might hear something like, show me the money. That one also coming out of Jerry Maguire, played by Tom Cruise. And I forget the other gentleman's name that is the show me the money character. But let's try this one. This one might be a little bit harder. Maybe you'll know it. Is you make me want to be a better man. Yeah, Cuba Jr. Yeah, that's who it was with the show me the money. What about you make me a better man? Anybody know that one? Great movie too, if you haven't seen it. Yeah, you're right. It's something with Jack Nicklaus. He's the one that says it. His character name in this particular one is Melvin Udall. And the name of the movie is As Good as It Gets. Great movie. It's one of my wife's favorite to watch as well. Here's a simpler one that I'm sure all of you will know. Let's try this one. Wax on, wax off. Yeah, yeah, everybody knows that one. Mr. Miyagi instructing Danielson in The Karate Kid. Let's do one more. And I'll give you some hints on this one too. And this is one of my favorite movies to quote because there are, it seems like there's 100 different lines in this particular movie. The one I want to share with you is toward the end of the movie, and Salma Hayek and Matthew Perry, and some of you may already know the movie by that, just those two hints. They're in a really intense dialogue, and it goes something like this. I don't believe in signs anymore, Alex. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Fools rush in. Yes, very good. Scott, you've got that one. That's one of my favorite movies to quote. There's just 1,000 different lines literally in that one. What is it about movies that capture our attention and help us remember them? I would suggest to you it's their ability to connect with us by telling a good story. This is what I want to talk to you about today. Our ability to formulate and tell a good story can have a significant impact on our success. Let me start with telling you my story. You've already know my name is Terry, but what you don't know is I started my career working in a file room. Over the course of 20-ish plus years, I rose through the ranks, switching jobs to a couple different companies during that time, but eventually rose to the ranks of that of a vice president in a healthcare organization. I was accountable for about a $16 million budget and had close to 200 staff reporting to me. By most accounts, I was pretty successful. Then I did something stupid that nearly destroyed me. I'm not going to share all of the messy details with you in this particular forum, but let's just say it ranked up there high enough to make the local news. Within a couple of days, I was rightfully fired. I lost all sense of pride, and in the span of a week, I fell from the heights of the executive boardroom to the depths of washing mop buckets at a janitorial firm. I lost nearly everything. On one of those lonely days, a phone call from one of my few remaining friends is the only reason that I'm still here. You can see I'm still I can still relive those moments very, very, very vividly. Over time, I gained the confidence of the owner of that janitorial company. He knew my history and he knew my skill set. He began to include me in some of their management meetings, and soon I was training their leadership team and helping them make key strategic decisions. One of those decisions was around their sales model. It was highly unorganized and they were growing very rapidly. And so I introduced Salesforce to them and we hired a partner to come implement it. That partner noticed my technical ability and he said to me, Terry, if you would go get yourself certified on Salesforce, I would use you as a subcontractor. A few days later, I called him up and I asked, I said, hey, were you serious?
Oh no, is he frozen for anybody else? Did I lose it on my end?
Frozen.
No,
Yeah.
Oh no, 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 no.
It's a good story.
It's part of his story, the anticipation and the suspense.
Oh, yay. Oh, Terry. Okay. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, so he dropped. We'll give him a minute to get reconnected here. Of course, I don't want to minimize any part of his story or anything, but we all come in with our own journeys, and everybody's journey is unique and special to them, and it's what makes them special. It's what makes them amazing, and I appreciate that. I appreciate all of you because I know you all have your own journeys. I appreciate Terry for having the courage to get up here and do this. And so I hope we can get him reconnected as soon as possible. But if you walk away with nothing else from this meeting, it's love and appreciate everyone's experience and journey, where they come from, where they are, where they want to go. Come on, Terry. Come on. So I guess while we're waiting for him to rejoin, this is open floor. I didn't have any backup filler planned. Summer 20. Who's excited about what from Summer 20? Just go. Open floor.
You mean from the release, right?
Yeah.
I really like the that split view they have going on. So I don't know, maybe because I'm a millennial, like to multitask a lot. So having that option, so I can do more rather than having two screens, which I know a lot of people have. So it really simplifies that process.
Nice.
I really like it.
Salesforce voice, game changer. Yeah. Salesforce Voice, I have a little bit of a funny story on about a year and a half ago. So as a Salesforce MVP, I'm on an NDA, and we got called into a focus group, not knowing what it was, but we're under NDA, so it's safe. And they showed us a picture, if you were at Dreamforce last year, of the Einstein-looking smart device, and they were telling us about voice, and we're like, voice sounds awesome. It sounds like it's going to be great. You can hook it up to a smart device. Can we please not actually give away the Einsteins? Like, just we don't anything but that. Put it on Google. Put it on Echo. Just please don't give us the little Einstein device. That might look kind of weird. But yeah, voice is definitely going to be great. Carolyn, split view disappeared from your sandbox. That's interesting. Tell us about that.
Well, I just noticed it this morning. I was going in to do some training materials, and it was all of a sudden gone. And so I had just refreshed my sandbox, and so I thought because this is a developer edition, so it got rid of all of my accounts. So I did a whole bunch of accounts and added them back in, and yeah, no, it's still not there. Yeah, so I need to get hold of them. As I said, it just happened a little bit ago. I just noticed it.
Gotcha. Have you checked, thinking of this on the fly, but the Salesforce known issues site?
I have not. I need to get on that.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
Yeah, actually, that's a very good suggestion.
Because for those who aren't familiar with it, let me share my screen here real quick. For those who aren't familiar with it, it's on the success platform /issues_index. But then when you click into a specific issue, you have the ability to see if there's any progress, anything like that. But then also you can click on this affects me, and you'll be able to indicate, like for a sandbox, which CS was it on, or if it was a production org, which NA or EU or whatever. But then that will also not only help you see, is this isolated to just me or is it a bigger impact, but then it also gives Salesforce that feedback to know where to go tackle. So when in doubt, if you never have, go to, I just Googled Salesforce known issues, and this is what pops up on top is /issues_view.
Hey, Carolyn, what did you refresh from?
What did I refresh from?
Was it a non-summer 20 prod or something?
Yes. Oh, that may be it.
So you refreshed and lost your summer 20.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's such a good point.
I almost did that.
Yeah, so that's one of those that has befell many of us, and Terry jumped back in, so I'll give him the mic here in a minute. But yeah, release periods they're the greatest things, and they're kind of a curse at the same time, because it's great that you get to see the new functionalities ahead of time, but then it's like, okay, don't touch it, don't breathe on it, don't speak ill of it, don't anything, because it might go away, or if you refresh, you might not get back on the same cadence. So
that's why
this is an easy lesson to learn then.
Yeah, I have about 5 dev sandboxes, and I always refresh them just before we start this. So if I accidentally mess one up, I've got another one to go to.
Yeah,
I appreciate the heads up. I will do that from now on. Thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
Which then so just one last thing, and I'll give it to Terry. What we put in the slide deck earlier, status.salesforce.com, that applies to sandboxes as well, in terms of getting to see what that future release window looks like, so that if you know what server your sandbox is on, you can start to put that in your roadmap of when you can and cannot do certain things. So just keep that in mind. All right, Terry, I'm sorry that you got frozen and dropped. You
no problem. Where was I at?
You had just said a couple of days after speaking to somebody about if you got certified. So if you want to go ahead and share again.
Very good. Thank you. All right, so let me, all right, sorry, my computer, I think, completely froze up on that for some reason, and I had to end up restarting completely. So let me back up here a little bit. So over time, I gained the confidence of the owner of that janitorial firm that I was telling you about, and he knew my history and my skill set, and he began to include me in their management meetings. And I was helping them then with some of their strategic decisions. One of those was to help them with their sales, and I introduced Salesforce to them, as I hopefully maybe you caught all of that from before. And we hired a partner to then help implement it. And so I think this is where we maybe lost our connection. That partner noticed my ability, and he said to me, Terry, if you would go get yourself certified on Salesforce, we'll use you as a subcontractor. A few days later, I called him and I said, were you serious about that offer? And of course, he said yes. And so my Salesforce journey then began. The 12 years since that time have been absolutely phenomenal. I've had a tremendous success as an independent consultant. I am 15 times certified, as Dale mentioned. I qualify to sit for the CTA board review, although I will tell you I'm not ready. I am a Lightning Champion Des Moines user group leader. I serve on the Salesforce user group advisory board, which just completed yesterday. I'm a mentor. But one of the things that I am really most excited about and most passionate about is I get the opportunity to plug into the lives of other people who have had similar struggles as I have. And my story has impacted literally hundreds of lives. Every foolish thing that my decision had, the impact of my foolish decision, has been restored at least twofold. And I am incredibly, incredibly grateful. So when I think about who I am today compared to who I once was, I am humbled, and I'm grateful. I have a career that I absolutely love. I get to work with phenomenal people all the time, and it's a blast to do what I do. And there's nothing more rewarding for me personally than to plug into the lives of other people. So thank you for the opportunity to connect with you guys today. I'm super excited, and I hope that by the end of our time today, you'll have a new tool belt that will help you raise your own effectiveness. So we're just a few minutes into this presentation, and I've shared with you already 2 stories. The first one was a fun little game that demonstrates how just a single line from a movie, we're able to recall that movie and the kind of the story behind what's going on. I also shared with you part of my personal story. And I suspect for many of you, you'll remember more of that than perhaps anything else that I share today. As we get into our presentation, I want to give you a heads up of what you can expect. So I did outline the topics for today. That was uploaded, as Dale mentioned. So if you did want to go download and follow along with the presentation, you can certainly go out to your Kansas City Community user group or your communities page and download that if you'd like to, and then follow along and fill in the blanks. But what we're going to cover today is why stories work, why we should care, and then we're going to finish up with how to build a good story. Did you know that first impressions are made within 7 seconds? That means that if we don't have a solid opening, or if we can't tell our story, we lose our audience. Now, I could have introduced myself by rattling off the standard facts and figures that you typically hear when people introduce someone. But honestly, I don't often remember those things. However, I suspect that a week from now, some of you are still going to be able to recall parts of my story. And I want to ask ourselves, why is that? what is it that makes a story something that is so much more compelling than just hitting people with the facts and figures? So I would suggest to you that it's because stories leave a lasting impression. And so let me demonstrate this. How many of you on the call were on this meeting a month ago? If you were, just kind of quickly let me know there in that chat window. Yeah, okay, yeah, perfect, good. So let me demonstrate this to you. David Geller shared a story about his office space. How many of you remember that story? All right, so in the chat window, or again, if you prefer to unmute yourself, that's fine too. I want you to tell me some of what you remember about his office space and that story that he shared. Anybody remember any parts of that story? Lightning is key, okay. All right. Am I the only one that remembered that story?
Thought he had a sick relative.
Yes, he did. Yes, absolutely he did. Yep. What do you perhaps remember about where he had to move his office?
The basement.
Yeah, to the basement, right? Yep. And that basement was unfinished, if you remember. And as Dell even mentioned some of this earlier on into our meeting today, he had put in lighting and different things behind him. He had a curtain that he hung up behind him to make the space look at least somewhat presentable. He did have to give up his office because, yeah, it was cold. Yep, you're right, Chris. It was very cold down there because he didn't have any heat. And if you remember, he had a blanket that he had across his lap, and he was talking about how he was just freezing while he was doing conference calls. And it was in the middle of winter. So part of why then it was so cold, yeah. If I don't remember for sure what his sister was sick from. I don't know if it was cancer or if it was cancer. Thanks, Dale. But he had to give up his office space for his sister. And so he then moved to that unfinished basement and had to kind of set up shop. And it was a really simple story, but it connected. I could see this. It's connected with some of you because you're remembering pieces of it now as we talk about it. That simple story is a great example of how stories communicate to us in a way that just facts and figures don't. It's said that 50% of our human conversation comes in the form of stories. We're more receptive to someone's story than we are to facts and figures. Stories help us relate to people. They help us empathize. Stories allow our brains to process information in a form that is more digestible and more memorable. So my first point here is that stories work because they are memorable. When a presenter is quoting stats or other data, and you've probably all been in meetings like this where they'll put up a slide and it's just full of information, and it just puts us in a bit of an overwhelming type state. And if you're like me, I tune it out because I just can't keep up with what they're trying to communicate. Stories, on the other hand, they engage our heart and our mind and allow the watcher or the reader or to relax into that moment. We're able to engage in that in a way that is so much more calming than it is to have facts and data just tossed in our lap. Stories work because they stimulate our brain. Watching, listening, reading, and engaging story activates more parts of our brains than just facts. It releases dopamine. And if you're familiar with dopamine, that's that happy hormone that you always hear about. But it's really much more than that. Dopamine is a messenger or a neurotransmitter that conveys signals between our neurons. I promise that's as scientific and technical as this is going to get today. So I hope you made it through that particular statement. Here's what it does though. It controls our mental and our emotional response, but it also controls our physical reaction. So how we respond to a good story it engages our entire mind and our entire body in a way that facts don't do. So stories keep us engaged. A good story will communicate an emotional or create an emotional connection with its character. While we're not looking for some crazy outburst of emotion, we do want someone or something the listener can relate to. Our job as the storyteller is to present a picture that is simple to understand, easy to follow, and is of interest to those that are listening. By doing so, our audience is able to build a vested interest in the story, and they anxiously await what is the next step in that journey. So we've seen how stories work. Now let's take a look about why you should care. The first reason we should care is that stories communicate our ideas effectively. Earlier this year at the Des Moines user group meeting, I invited Keith Commit to speak, and he spoke on this idea of storytelling as well. And Keith is the Director of Digital Customer Experience at Principal Financial Group. Perhaps you are familiar with that organization. Very large insurance company, financial organization here in Des Moines. His team was seeking approval for a very sizable budget to implement the Salesforce Marketing Cloud. Keith introduced his stakeholders at Principal to Rachel, a persona that represents their customer. Using customer data, Rachel was developed. We were taken on a journey that represented the experience they wanted to deliver to their customer. Through the art of storytelling, he gained executive, management, and technologist support by walking them through her journey. He simply then asked the question, is this the experience we want to deliver to our customers? And everyone, of course, said yes. He was then able to share the needed resources, the technology, the cost, and how they were going to measure the success of the project. One of the things that I would suggest to you, as I think most of us on this call would probably consider ourselves technologists, and often our first instinct is to go into a conversation leading with technology because that's what we're comfortable with. We think sometimes that everybody should be on the same page as us from the technology standpoint. And what happens is if we are looking for approval or acceptance of an idea with people who are non-technical, we lose them every time. So I would ask you to be careful to always speak to your audience in their language. The second reason that we should care is that stories simplify the complex. Stories can take on multiple forms. It could be a persona that represents the experience of a customer, or it could simply be a picture. Now, I have a client who I've worked with for many years, and I've completed numerous projects with them along the way. While they recently reached out again and engaged me in a project, and I wanted to take a different approach this time. I wanted to visually represent a more holistic view of where are they currently at? What is their current state? And to do this, I simply used a picture that identified where their gaps are in their project or in their process. And that picture was this. For our purposes, the details of what's on here isn't that important, but what it represents is their process from acquisition through opportunity management, contract management, customer support, and self-service. The critical piece is that green or yellow or red dot that's in the top right corner of each of those elements. And that represented whether or not that portion of the process was working effectively. The goal of the project then is to get all of those dots green. Finally, stories excite, align, and rally us around a goal. When our ideas are really big, like implementing something like the Marketing Cloud or trying to fill the gaps of a very long process, there are a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of places where you could initiate a story. However, what if your idea isn't quite that large? I would suggest you can still benefit from storytelling. So let's say maybe you want to implement single sign-on, or maybe you want to transition your org from workflow rules to flow. There's still a story that can be told there. So let's look at single sign-on. Single sign-on can have a significant impact on your users' adoption. There's a story there. You can easily relate a story around your user's experience and communicate that as a way of seeking approval for single sign-on. Now, how we explain something like transitioning workflow rules to a newer technology such as Flow, that's a little bit different because we're trying to communicate something that is technical to perhaps somebody who's not. And so I would suggest maybe in that scenario, we try to think of what is it that perhaps that user or that the person we are speaking to, what is something that they can relate to that is similar, but not necessarily the technology, but we get them engaged in something that they understand. And then we can come in with a simple statement of the idea of this is also why it's important for us to transition away from some older technology into new. And they're able then to relate and say, okay, now I get it. Stories build energy regardless of their size and scope. They get us all on the same page and they give us a direction to follow. Now, when we are presenting or how we present our story is also really important. After all, we do want them to approve it. So let's take a look at how we build our story. Knowing your audience, I would argue, is the most important element of your story. I want you to think about what resonates with them. What information will they want? What maybe keeps them awake at night? I think so. Sometimes it's easy to go into a meeting or into a virtual session like this, and we come in with our own desires of what it is that we want, and we sometimes don't take the time to think, what is it that they want? How is it that we can address their problem? What do you need from them, and how might they resist? Back in my days when I was in my corporate job, my CEO at the time, he always wanted 3 things. And if I didn't come to a meeting with him with these 3 things, I wasn't going to get anywhere. And those 3 things were this. He always wanted a budget. He always wanted an org chart or the resource allocation. And he always wanted a timeline. Again, I had to have those things. Otherwise, it was going to go nowhere. Second, we want to define our goal clearly. What is your big idea? Do you believe in it enough that you can convince others to follow it? I want you to think of maybe this particular equation. Point of view plus stakes equals a big idea. Your unique point of view on a given topic is important. And when you take that and add to it, what's at stake if those ideas aren't adopted, then, or likewise, if they are adopted, That's your big idea. So point of view plus what's at stake equals your big idea. Maybe think of it like this. Think of your story in the form of 3 acts. And if you've done any type of writing, you've seen this before. But we want to paint a picture where that before is our current state of what is. The end is the future state of what we hope to have happen. That's our goal. And the middle is where we are making our points or sharing our evidence. Another way to look at it is this. Here, the story begins with what is, and it contrasts it against what could be. Ultimately concluding in this new state of bliss that we want our audience to adopt. That movement between what is and what could be creates tension and energy, and it engages the audience. It keeps their attention. That gap between what is and what could be, that's what we have to overcome in our audience. We have to help them move from what is to what could be effectively. We want to move our audience from their current state of believing and behaving to a new blissful state of believing and behaving. Let me say that again. We want to move them from their current state of believing and behaving to this new blissful state of believing and behaving. And to do that, they obviously have to adopt our big idea. Now, the final step in building a good story is to include our call to action. This is the ask. What is it that we want our audience to do? What will it take to achieve this new state of bliss? Too often, we will leave this out. I don't know, maybe it's because we are afraid of hearing them say no. Perhaps they'll reject us in some manner. But the only way to know for sure is to ask. If we don't, it's almost as if we are accepting status quo. We're accepting no as an answer just because we were afraid to even ask the question. So don't waste the time of your audience by not asking them to take some form of action. Another thing that I have seen happen, and I'm guilty of this as well, is sometimes I will get out ahead of my skis and I'll ask before I've even set the stage. So going back to my days in the corporate world, I would relate this to often like this, is I'm planting seeds and I'm constantly watering them over time. Because sometimes to get what we want, it takes time. And the ask itself can be a process that we have to go through. So I want to share with you a template that we can use to help build our story. This template is from Build a Better Business, and it outlines a simple process that we can use. So let's take a quick look. In that top left-hand corner is the title of our story. It's the brand. Next to that is the goal. It's the call to action, or what is it that you want to have happen? Our audience is who are we presenting to. In that before block, that's the current state. In the after block is our new state of bliss. That's how we want things to look after they've implemented our idea. Moving back into box number 1 there with set the scene, we're introducing a current state in a way that connects with our audience. That's really important. We want to set the stage that connects with the audience. We're making our point in that middle block, and that's where we're bridging that gap between what is and what could be. And then obviously in our conclusion, that's where we are then making our ask. That's what do we need them to do, or what will it take to achieve that state of bliss? You've already met Ashir. Ashir volunteered to help me on this. So Ashir, if you don't mind unmuting yourself, hopefully you are still with us as well. And just give me a quick yell if you are.
Yep.
All right, very good. Very good. Ashir, if you don't mind, could you quickly just introduce yourself? We already know you're from Houston, but tell us a little bit about who you are. What's your story?
Yeah, thanks for that, Terry. No, I do not have an amazing story as Terry has prepared, but I'll do my best. So I have been on the Salesforce platform for a year. I've been helping mostly nonprofits set up their org. And I do, as a kid, like I've always had a passion for learning, always curious, always like trying out new things. And I got my degree in engineering. So I do have an engineering background. I went through the 9 to 5 as an engineer, but every day was painful. Like I hated being there. It was too constricting for me. Not many for me to express myself. And I hated going to work every day. So my family is in business. So I assumed I've always wanted to be a business entrepreneur, go out there, create things, help people, make a difference, contribute. So I moved to business, started businesses. A lot of them failed. I've had built successful businesses, and that was empowering. That was fulfilling. Comes with the roller coaster of emotions, of ups and downs. And then I came across a friend introduced me to Salesforce, and it was the best of both worlds. I can apply my technical skills of engineering into the Salesforce world. I can also have fill that need of interacting with people, solving creative problems, and most importantly, the reason I love Salesforce is it's like a constant, never-ending learning process. Because like yesterday, I got certified for my platform app, and every time I get excited, yes, I learned something. Equally, I'm like, wow, I did not realize how much I did not know. So there's always more to learn, and connecting with people that are like 5 years, 10 years, even 15 years ahead of me, and to see how they still have that childlike curiosity, because it's just constant progress. So there's so many things to do on the Salesforce platform, so many avenues you can go. So that's what I'm really excited about, literally the process of just getting better every day and helping other people.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ashir. I appreciate that. Now, you had shared with me before the meeting an idea that you wanted to see happen. Share with the group what your idea was.
Cool, yeah. So my suggestion was, so right now, my audience would be Mary. She is a mother of 3. She is deeply connected to her community. And as a child, she saw a lot of suffering in a community. And now the way she's able to help is she's part of a nonprofit org, a food pantry. So that feeds low-income families. And right now, they feed around around 2,200 families a day, and they have 8 committed staff. However, a lot of their workforce comes from volunteers.
Very good.
Now,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So having a lot of the systems they have in place is very disconnected. It's all over the place. Their client intake is mostly done through paper. So most days the line is very long, the wait lines, because they have to get people accepted or check their information. The data is all over the place. It's hard to read people's handwriting. It's hard to track it. Data is lost a lot of the times.
Okay.
So
Ashir, what you're describing right now, if we were to look at the canvas, that storytelling canvas, what you're describing right now would be what we would put in this section in the before block. That is the current state and the challenges that it sounds like they currently have. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. Continue with your story, and I'm gonna as you tell it, I'm gonna interject where that might fit on our canvas so that we can kind of build this out a little bit.
Okay. Sweet. So program management wise, so it is the system they have in place is ineffective. It's slow, even though it kind of gets the job done. she feels like her staff is doing literally 4 times the work they need to do to get the job done. They don't have a good volunteer management in place, having to track the volunteers, follow up with them. So she can feel her staff being frustrated, overwhelmed, stressed, because they have to spend time on data entry task, administrative task, which is very repetitive and not very effective. So she can feel her staff kind of having like that burnt out stage.
Yeah, so it sounds like they've got lots of challenges. And what is your idea that you would like to introduce to them?
So my proposal is to implement one of the number one CRM out there. Implement Salesforce. Yeah. And so that would be the primary objective, to implement a Salesforce so they can effectively track and manage their constituents' data, so they can better serve their clients and expand their org. And then the secondary objective is let me consult you and implement it for you.
Right. Yeah, very good. So that's your goal. And so we would put that into this box for to outline our goal. Now, if they were to do that, what would be this new blissful state? So what would we put in the after block on our canvas here?
Okay. So once they do have a Salesforce implementation in place, the client intake process would be a lot faster. It would be all their tools, systems will be integrated onto one platform, so they could, reduce the time and the costs to their org, because they can eliminate other tools they don't need. They could better manage their data, so they can analyze, see what programs are working, what's not working, so they can improve it. They could build better relationships with their donors, so increase their fundraising efforts and maximize it on that end.
And here's the one. Here's the one you shared with me that I really liked. I liked this idea here of to feed more families faster, better, and cheaper. And
the overall, yes. A one-line summary, yes. Short and sweet.
Yeah, very, very much so. And that is a great final outcome of or this big idea, what this new blissful state would look like if they would to implement Salesforce and allow you to help consult in the process of building that out. So what I'd like us to think about now, and this I want all of you on the call, please, this is a time to unmute yourselves if you don't mind helping us out. But you have a sense now of what Ashir is attempting to do. So we've got the goal outlined, we have our audience outlined, we know the before, so we know their current state, and we know what we're trying to go to for their after state. So what we are wanting now to build is that set the stage, how do we make our point, and then how do we conclude our story? So this is the piece where we're really getting into the meat of constructing our story. So help us out. Based off of what you just heard Ashir say, how might you construct your story? How might you set the stage to communicate and seek the approval for implementing Salesforce? Any ideas? And again, if you're shy, you're welcome to communicate in the chat window.
Jerry, this is Matt.
Yeah, Matt.
My big thing is, they have a really important mission, and that they want to be spending their time and energy doing, not the administrative tasks and the kind of busy work. And so ultimately, by implementing a solution that's going to, cut down on the admin time, and it gives them more time to care about what they really want to do with their mission.
Yeah, very good. And how might you communicate that to them in a way that Mary would understand. I'm going to assume this year Mary is probably not a technology savvy person. I find that a lot of the nonprofit people that I work with are in that boat. Their passion is people and helping people. And so when I think about the idea of setting the stage and creating a story that would connect with Mary, I'm thinking that we would do something similar to what Principal did, where we create a persona of a family that is in need, that maybe it's multiple families, and I'm kind of even going to the idea of tapping into emotion a little bit from the standpoint of maybe this is a hungry family, and the doors were closed and they couldn't get food, and their kids are hungry, and we're tapping then into maybe the heartstrings of what Mary wants to solve, and so we're getting her attention by setting the stage there. And I'm just kind of spitballing here with you guys. As we move more into some of the making the points, maybe it's then describing why the door closed. Why was that family not able to get the support that or the food that they needed? And you can paint a picture of the staff maybe inside the door that is just busy working on spreadsheets and working on paper, and they aren't busy serving. They're not busy doing the things that help meet that family's needs. What do you think of that? What's your thoughts on that approach? And you can disagree if somebody disagrees, they don't like that approach. I'm totally open with that.
I liked it. What came to mind to me is like a picture of, outside their organization, and there's a big line, and then this family comes up to get in line, and there's just couple after couple in front of them, and the day's wearing on, and it's like,
sure,
well, there's a whole nother overflow building over to the right, and if only you would like pull the rope off, take the barrier down, they could walk and they could get served over there. Like, is that something that you want?
Yeah, there you go. That's your question. That's your ask right there at the very end. Is that your goal? Is that what you would want to do? I like that. Yeah. Anybody else have a thought on that? So what we're trying to do here is tap into Mary's interest. We could have approached this by saying, hey, Mary, you need to implement Sales Cloud or Salesforce, and it will do X, Y, and Z for you. And Mary's sitting there probably thinking, I don't even know what Salesforce is. You're talking to Mary in a language she has no ability to understand. And so by communicating or switching the way that we address this, we're getting Mary to buy into what she then understands, and then we're able to, similar to the way that Keith did with Principal, come in with, here's what it would take to do that. Here's how implementing this technology can help us accomplish your mission. And I think that would be a really powerful story for you. So any other thoughts from anyone here before we take and wrap this up?
Yeah, I really liked how you actually painted an emotional picture of a real life situation that she could be in, and being able to connect it to the mission itself, right? The mission is to help the families, but due to the paperwork, they didn't even realize there was a mother out there with already hungry, already struggling, and then the kids driving her nuts. And then the one solution, one thing she was looking forward to all day perhaps was the organization support. And that support was denied because Mary was stuck with paperwork and not being able to meet everyone's needs. So that was beautifully painted.
And I would be careful with associating a label like saying, well, because Mary was doing paperwork, that you don't want to put Mary on a defensive side there either. So be careful with something, with how you say things like that. So let's wrap up here really quick because I know we're getting to the top of the hour. I like this quote from Laura Wells Cleves, and she says that storytelling transforms confusion, resistance, and uncertainty, and it turns them into understanding, alignment, and confidence. So let me say it one more time because there's a lot in that. Storytelling transforms confusion, resistance, and uncertainty, and it turns it into understanding, alignment, and confidence. So stories allow you to sell your ideas and influence others in a way that facts and figures alone could never do. They can help you get approval for the budget or whatever the resource is that you're needing. So I hope that in this time, I've painted a compelling picture of why stories work and how stories can influence others. So let me leave you with my call to action. Next time you need to sell an idea, I would ask that you try this technique. Create a compelling story. Doing so can have a profound impact on your ability to influence those around you and get the outcome that you're looking for. So thank you again for your time and attention today. I really do appreciate it, and I hope that you found what I shared valuable. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to help people. So Dale, with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you. Thank you for the opportunity to share with your team. And Ashira, thank you for volunteering and helping me with the story as well. I appreciate it.
Well, and thank you, Terry. I mean, just obviously, it's a great technical soft skill or soft technical skill that you just ran through, but also just thank you for being vulnerable and framing your story around why stories are important. We absolutely appreciate you giving us that piece of you, and that's part of what makes you awesome. So thank you so much.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, absolutely.
So we are at the top of the hour, and in amongst everything that we've gotten to see in the last couple hours, I got called into some client meetings here in the next few minutes. So we're going to go ahead and close. Thank you everybody for joining. Again, I have no idea what happened with Zoom. I'm going to guess it was user error on my part, that as I was scheduling this, I was also scheduling other meetings and copied the wrong URL. So that's bad on me. I apologize for the late start. Again, I will share this recording as soon as it's available. It'll probably be later this afternoon or this evening. I'll also share out the deck with links and everything. Thank you so much to Tom and Jill from Metazoa. Thank you, Terry. Be sure to register for Trailhead X, and no strings attached if you don't want to sign up for the virtual watch party, but we'd love to have you as well to have that on the side. And then also be looking for invites for July 9th and August 13th. Both are Thursdays. As soon as we have all the details buttoned up, we'll have those out. I appreciate each and every one of you. Be well, be safe, and until we get to chat again, thank you so much for jumping on, and have a great rest of your week. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Dale.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody who joined from outside the city and the region. We love having you. You can jump on anytime. Thank you.